Hi, welcome to the Badass Breastfeeding Podcast. This is Dianne, your lactation consultant.
And I'm Abby, the Badass Breastfeeder, and this episode is brought to you by Just In Case Nursing Pads. Just In Case is committed to making breastfeeding more comfortable, less stressful, and more sustainable with their reusable nursing pads. And today's episode is also brought to you by Sarah's Chill. Never worry about safely storing your breast milk or formula again. Sarah's Chill was invented by a mom for moms and offers guaranteed convenience with their double-walled stainless steel container. But we'll hear more from our sponsors in a little while. But please head to badassbreastfeedingpodcast.com where you'll find a sponsor page of all of our sponsors, and they make this podcast possible. So if you can give them any of your business, that would be great. And while you're there, you can scroll down and enter your email address, and we'll send episodes straight to your inbox every Monday. And now, Dianne, here's our review of the week.
And it comes from Gmail. And it was our email address, badassbreastfeedingpodcast@gmail.com. Sorry, my alarm was just going off. I don't know if you heard that or not, but
I thought it was mine.
Oh, it was mine.
It's the same sound. I was like, wait, where is it?
Nope, it was mine. So this is from Hannah. She had nothing to do with my alarm. But she says, your podcast is the best one out there. I'm a first-time mom, and I've been listening to this podcast for a few weeks, and it's a weekly thing now. It helps me with breastfeeding and information I didn't know as a mom. Someone the other day told me, why don't you just use formula? And I said, no. And the person kept saying, why? And I said, because I won't. I had to stick up for myself and for my baby. It all started because I said she was gassy and fussy the other night, like, sorry, I won't use formula unless I really need to. And I love this podcast. My name is Hannah. I'm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Thank you so much, Hannah.
Hi, Hannah from Pittsburgh.
Hi, Hannah. I went through Pittsburgh a couple weeks ago and I took my son to West Virginia. So
Pittsburgh is cool.
Yeah, it was kind of cool.
I've been there.
It rained, but it was rainy. I hate driving in the rain, but that's a whole different story. Yeah. So I really liked this because I don't want people to think that like, oh no, you're never supposed to use formula, because like we always say, like, it's your choice. You have your options, but it sounded like she was just kind of like, oh, my baby's gassy. And someone was like, oh, we'll just use formula. And that's not the answer. Like, that's sometimes
not an answer.
Right. That's not the answer. And she was like, no, that's not what I want to do. Leave me alone. That's not the choice I'm making. So good for you for standing up for yourself, because I think people are just like, just use formula, when that's not what you want to hear.
Right. I mean, you need to, the basis of social work is meeting people where they're at. You don't go in and tell people, well, you really should be doing it this way. You really should be doing it that way. In order to help people, you need to go in and be inside of what they're inside of. Mm-hmm. We don't just go around, well, you should just not be doing that at all. What? Right. That's not how we do things. Don't do that. Get over people making the decision. She already made the decision for herself of what she was going to do. And it sounds like she was just complaining. She didn't need any advice.
No, and isn't that what always happens when you're a parent?
Yes.
Like, no matter what it is, I'm tired. Oh, well then, you should just cry out or sleep train.
Yeah. I didn't ask you for advice. I'm just venting.
Yeah. The baby's fussy. Well, then switch to formula. I don't like my job. Well, then quit and join the military. Like, what? I mean, people don't say that about any other thing.
We don't say.
Like, if I'm having a day where I don't like my job, like every once in a while, people, like my husband or whatever, like would be like, well, I mean, what else are you going to do? Like, it's like, what else would you do kind of thing? Like trying to tell me reasons why I am doing what I'm doing. Like, you don't try to talk people out of it. Oh yeah, it sucks. Just quit and move on to the next thing. Like, how about saying, I'm sorry, it is, it's a really difficult stage you're in, but it passes and it'll be okay. Keep doing what you're doing.
Just let people have their feelings. Oh, that sounds really hard. It sounds really hard. Is there anything I can do? If you ever need anything done, I can help.
Oh, people are the worst. So
anyways, we're probably, go ahead.
I know we totally solved your problem for you, huh, Hannah? Sorry about that. But thank you so much for sending us the info and for touching base with us, telling us what, that this has been helpful. I am really, really glad. And it is so empowering for us to hear that we've been able to empower you. So that's really great to hear. Thank you very much. Send us reviews. You can put them on iTunes, which is really helpful to the podcast. It helps us to look important. And if you can't do that, you can always send us an email like Hannah did to badassbreastfeedingpodcast@gmail.com. That's all I got.
Yes. And today we're going to talk about something that's guaranteed to give you lots of unsolicited advice.
Oh, yeah.
Which is like all the random things that your baby's going to go through that everyone has the answer for.
Yeah, except for he's a baby.
Right.
Which is really the only answer there is. Like, they're a baby.
He's right. He's a baby. That's why he's doing that. Oh, well, there must be something wrong. And then you get your head filled with all of these things that it could be. And, well, it's just that they're a baby.
And that's all there is to it.
And I think go ahead.
Like, I think we want an easy answer, right? Like, we want, oh, your baby is doing this. Well, just do this and
we want a solution. Right?
You make it some easy solution.
Mm-hmm. We want there to be an answer and a solution to everything that's going on. But you know what? When your baby is, for example, learning how to roll over, they are going to be more wakeful. They are going to possibly be more fussy. It's going to affect their feeding behavior. And there is no answer. There is no answer and there is no solution except for them to just move through that developmental phase.
Yeah. And we did, it's kind of what we talked about when we did like the 4-month sleep regression. I think we did one on that like a few months ago, where it's not really like they call it a regression, but it's really like it's developmental. And we're not even going to talk about just that 4 months. We're going to talk about all the things, because even in the very beginning, when babies are born, there's stuff that happens that is completely developmental, that are milestones. I mean, believe it or not, your baby that's like a week old is hitting milestones. Like, it happens.
Right. So, and your toddler. And if you're breastfeeding all the way into toddlerhood or small childhood, there's developmental, things that are going to affect their feeding behavior then too.
I see this happen. I get messages on this constantly.
Yes. Yes. Constantly.
It's real. It's one of the most common things. And like, I got one just yesterday. I got a couple today, but one yesterday that I'm thinking of is, this mom was like, had all these, the baby's doing this, the baby's really fussy. And then she said, well, he's got a tooth coming in. I'm like, there you go. That's what's going on. That'll really change up their feeding behavior.
That is just like misery 101 for a baby.
Yeah. And she was like, well, but this didn't happen with my first kid. Very different. Babies are very, very different from each other, even in the same family.
Right, exactly. And it might not even happen with the same child with another tooth coming in.
Right. It depends on where that tooth is, which one is coming in.
Just how much it's bothering them. Yeah. Sometimes they pop through real fast. It doesn't seem to bother them. Sometimes it's just pushing really long time on the gums, irritating the gums, and it just takes so long to pop through. And they're miserable for a long time.
Oh, there's so much. So I don't know, maybe we should start like from the newborns.
Yeah, let's do it.
And talk a little bit about those guys. So newborns, a lot of times what happens with them, like they're newly born. And I really feel like our society, our culture just kind of expects that these babies are going to be born. They're going to cry when they need to be fed. They're going to cry if they need to be changed. And they're going to sleep. And then after like a month or so, maybe they're going to be a little bit more playful, a little bit more awake and alert, and, so on as it kind of goes. Nobody expects the fussiness. Nobody expects gassiness. Nobody expects, crying regularly, for no reason. And nobody knows what to do when that happens. Well, so when it does happen, everybody's like, oh my, hiccups. People freak out at the hiccup.
Oh my God.
It happens all the time, and it's all part of their development.
Yeah. And it just goes to show how scary and how, I don't want to say irrationally scary, because that's kind of rude. But like, I think about my kids now, they're older. If they have gas, I'm just like, haha. You're full of farts, whatever. When they were babies and they had gas, it was so scary.
It was, yeah.
Like, oh my God, what am I supposed to do? I have to do something. How do I teach them to fart? Oh my God, how are they going to get it out? Like as if it was a life and death matter. Mm-hmm. And like, we are just so, and there's biology behind this too. We are wired to be so responsive and sensitive to our newborns, which is what keeps them alive. But, our brains like really go overboard with it.
Yeah.
Because we're scared of every single last thing. So, so when something is wrong, we can do something about it. But we get worried about absolutely everything. Everything is worrying. I had a poop log. I'm sure everybody had a poop log where you're keeping track of their poop for what? I just think now I look at it and I'm like, this gives me zero information except that he pooped. Like I needed to make a log that he poops.
It is
I don't
really
keep a log anymore.
I know, right? Like you would really need to. I have no idea even when my kids do poop. Like they're old. I have no idea.
I know because Jack announces it all the time. Mommy, I have to poop. I'm like, you do know that you can just go do that, right? You
Sometimes
don't need to let everyone know. You just,
I mean,
it's a big announcement. But anyway, yeah.
But everybody kind of falls into this black hole of everything that the baby does is related to the feeding.
Exactly. Everything becomes a feeding problem.
Yes. And none of it is a feeding problem.
Right.
And I'm sorry, when you're bottle feeding, nobody thinks, oh my gosh, the baby has a hiccups. Is it because of their bottle?
Yeah. Or they're like constipated. Maybe this formula isn't like sitting well in their stomach.
Or they're fussy. So it must be something else because I just fed them. Like, nobody really, we always kind of go to, oh, it's always a feeding issue. It must be something I'm eating. It must be something I'm doing. It must be something in my diet. Those are the huge things that we see.
I'm not making enough.
So the baby's fussy.
I mean, they're just, and that's what happens with the, any of this, like, it's, the wakefulness at night, the fussiness, when they're not nursing very frequently, like nursing strikes or something like that, it's all like, oh my God, I don't have enough milk.
Yeah. What did I do wrong?
Never the case.
It is.
They're going through something. And by the way, if they do have a nursing strike, I'm all over the map right here. I am like all over the map. But like, I was thinking about nursing strikes. I'm like, first of all, that is a scary word. Like they're not on strike. They're not fighting for like equal pay for their other babies. They're not, they want to nurse. They're trying to nurse. It hurts. It's uncomfortable. It's whatever it is that's causing that to happen is like, they're not choosing this. They hate it. They want to nurse. It's uncomfortable. And then you go through all these, if it's long enough, you can have supply issues, whatever. But your baby, when they start nursing again, will pop that milk supply back up so fast.
Exactly.
You don't even have to worry about it. But I had a message recently of somebody who, she said she went to the dentist to have a procedure and then she didn't nurse because she was told not to nurse. So she didn't nurse for like a couple days. And she swears to it that her milk supply is low ever since. And that he's not getting enough.
It really gets in your brain.
Yeah.
It really does. It really gets in your brain.
Go on. You were talking about something useful.
all of it's useful. So it really, like those beginning, one of the things that I think is one of the most impactful is that fussy period when babies like cluster feed, when they're, in the evening time. We always see that usually right around like 2 weeks, and it goes till about 2 or 3 months or whatever. Babies are like super fussy in the evening. They're cluster feeding. Like some babies, it doesn't affect them, but the majority of babies do kind of like hit this part of the day where they are just really fussy and nothing you can do will console them. They're just fussy. They want to be held. They want to be latched on. They want to be snuggled. And people always, do I not have enough milk at this time of day? Why is the baby so fussy? Is there something wrong with my milk? Is there something in it that's making them fussy? Why are they, what's happening with this? And it's just your baby's development. They have a very immature neurological system that gets overstimulated really, really easily. They also have a very immature digestive system, which is why they're gassy and why they have a hard time getting the gas out. They have a very immature diaphragm, which is why they get the hiccups. Like developmentally, they just need to come together. And it doesn't happen overnight. We do not birth babies that are like ready to roll into the world all put together.
No, we talked about this in one of the previous episodes, is that humans are some of the most immature mammals of all.
Mm-hmm.
So they are the most needy, and they seem very needy. And that's it's true. They are very immature compared to, other mammals upon birth.
And yeah, needy is a great, and we don't mean needy like, oh, so needy.
Not like your boyfriend in high school. Not that guy. Not that guy.
But they do need you for survival because they can't do it on their own. Obviously, they're babies. Like they can't do it on their own. But that same thing that makes them needy will also make them fussy at times, not sleep well, cranky, gassy, spitting up, all of those things that happen that is just part of their development.
Yeah. And you get a young enough baby, like they don't even, I'm sure they're very sleepy, whatever, but sometimes, especially if they're overstimulated or anything like that, they don't even know how to fall asleep.
No.
Like they don't know anything. And you're like, oh my God, you're tired, go to sleep. And like, they just like can't.
No, they don't.
So there's so much going on with them and it's really not you. It's not the milk.
And I try to tell parents will be like, well, they're not doing this or they're not latching well. And I'm like, they don't know what they're doing.
No,
like,
they're complete messes.
They have no idea. And they start to cry. Like, and I see this in my office all the time. Like the baby will start to cry. Like maybe we'll weigh them and that'll set them off, start crying. And then they'll like escalate because they don't know how to cry and then like stop crying when they're finished with whatever's happening. So then they escalate and they're screaming their heads off and everyone's like, oh my God, what's wrong with them? It's like nothing. They're fine. They just don't know how to calm down yet. Right. Their system is overloaded because it's immature and they will be fine. We just need to soothe them and calm them and stay calm so that they can be calm. But it's nothing you're doing wrong. And breastfeeding doesn't have anything to do with that.
Right. And let's talk more. Should we talk more after our sponsors?
Yes, because we got to get into the after newborn.
Yes, we're going to get into it, people. Swear to God. Hold on. We'll be right back. Today's episode is brought to you by Just In Case nursing pads. Struggles with nursing pads that scrunch up in your bra, slip out of place, and leak through your top add unnecessary stress. Just In Case is committed to making breastfeeding more comfortable, less stressful, and more sustainable for new parents. Just In Case set out to redesign nursing pads from the inside out, incorporating their patented Confitex textile technology. Unlike other reusable nursing pads, award-winning Just In Case pads are super absorbent and leak-proof, and they won't let you down when you let down. Plus, because they don't contain a layer of PU plastic, they're more eco-friendly and can be tossed in the dryer with the rest of your wash, essential for busy new parents. Just In Case also has a range of award-winning, super absorbent reusable underwear, perfect for postpartum bleeds, little wee leaks, or the eventual return of your period. They've got you covered. Badass breastfeeders can head to justincase.com. That's JUSTNCASE.com and use code BADASS15 for 15% off of your purchase. And today's episode is also brought to you by Sarah's Chill. Never worry about safely storing your breast milk or formula again. Sarah's Chill was invented by a mom for moms and offers guaranteed convenience with their double-walled stainless steel container. A little bit of water and ice is all you need to keep your breast milk or formula safe for 20 hours. No more lugging around chunky coolers and dozens of containers. You can pump and double pump all day into one sleek container. The chillers are dishwasher safe, airport friendly, and last a lifetime. Use it for wine, coffee, and any of your favorite beverages or even food when you're done breast or bottle feeding. Head over to sarahschill.com, that's CERESCHILL.com, or check them out on Instagram at sarahschill on Instagram, not .com. You can use code BADASSBreastfeeders25 for 25% off of your purchase of this container. And all of our sponsors and the promo codes can be found in our show notes at badassbreastfeedingpodcast.com. And the show notes will also include further information that we talk about in this episode. And at badassbreastfeedingpodcast.com, you can also find our breastfeeding resources, all of our other episodes, and information about scheduling your very own one-on-one online lactation consultation with Dianne.
Yeah, all the cool kids do it.
Yeah, right.
So we're talking about the older babies now, right? Like the younger baby, like we could talk forever about the younger babies, I feel like because it's just it's definitely what I see more of, but I feel like I'm always doing like that same reassurance with parents because the concerns are always the same.
Yeah, exactly. And we have that episode that's how to know when breastfeeding is going well.
Oh, that's a good one. I forgot about that.
You can listen to that episode and you can start to reassure yourself that that you truly know that your baby is happy, is healthy, that things are going well, and reassure yourself, that this is a very anxious time, that a lot of this stuff is seems very scary, but your baby is growing very fast. And you can even listening to this episode, but you can go into much more detail about what goes on with the development, excluding, kind of breastfeeding or feeding from it, just what's developmentally going on inside of a newborn's body.
Right.
I feel like when you start to understand what's going on and how quickly they're growing and how much is happening, it's, you can really understand like, okay, I think things are going well. I'm feeling anxious and I know all of the things that this baby is going through. And it's rough. You'd be fussy too.
I know. You have to really think about the logic behind it too. And I'm not saying, of course, when you're a new parent, like logic's kind of out the window.
You can't even, yeah.
It's really hard. But we want these babies to grow. And we see them growing, like you see them growing out of their clothes super fast. Like just they're constantly growing. But then we complain about how frequently they eat. And it's
right.
like, well, they shouldn't be eating that frequently, but they're growing a lot. Like it doesn't make sense. But look at your baby, see all the things that they're doing. And that will tell you like there's so much development going on. There's so much growth going on that is going to impact their day-to-day reactions.
Yeah.
Now, when they're a little older, then you run into like the 4-month sleep regression, whatever. That's what it's kind of like been labeled, but it really is a huge developmental time. And when they say regression, it's really a progression. Like your baby is really progressing and learning and striving and meeting new milestones. So it's not really a progression at all. It's more about them like doing more things.
Yeah, regression. I feel like regression just like fuels the misunderstanding around what's happening.
Yeah, because everybody goes, "Oh, my baby's in the 4-month sleep regression." People are like, "Oh, that's the worst," and
like they're going backwards.
Yeah, they just think that they're like
forward so fast that they can't sleep.
Yeah, they're just purposely not sleeping to
like
irritate
on strike.
You. Yeah,
it's like the word strike.
Like they're on strike. They're picketing in the picket line.
Yeah, no more boobs. No more boobs. Well, I mean,
no more sleep.
God. Yeah, right. They're just like, it's such a misunderstanding of what's actually happening.
There's so much that they're doing. And then if you think about that 4-month time, like it's usually, like 4 months, 5 months, they're rolling over, they're getting up on hands and knees, they're interacting with things more.
They're seeing things more. They're noticing things. You'll see them notice things in the room more. Maybe if you have a pet, they'll start noticing the pet.
Mm-hmm. They notice when you leave the room. Yeah. As opposed to when you come home, like when you're in the room, and if you leave the room, they might cry. Like there's a lot of things that's happening for them that you don't even know of that is happening in their brain development. Like it's just crazy how much they're advancing at this stage. Yeah.
And you don't get to see the brain development because it's inside and it's something that we don't get to see. You just get to see the behavioral side effects of it. Like less sleep, the fussiness,
some babies are teething at that age.
Oh God. Yeah. All of that all at the same time.
Yeah. There's so much stuff going on. Maybe you return to work. That's a really common thing to happen around that stage too. So there is so much happening, and we always go, "Oh, I think it's my milk supply." And it really isn't. Or you think it's your milk supply and it's not, but then you start doing things and it becomes your milk supply.
Yes. I was thinking about that earlier today. Yeah. We start intervening. What can I do? What do I need to do? And then you're messing with the milk supply. And then,
Absolutely. Whenever babies hit a pretty big milestone, like rolling, crawling, walking, teething, those things really, really do have the reality of messing up their sleep and messing up their feeds. They just, babies too, at right around the 4-month mark, they're becoming more, because they're so much more aware of their environment, they are very distracted. So they are like looking at all the things around them. They don't want to spend time eating. Whereas before you couldn't get this baby off your boob. Maybe now they're just like, all right, let me take a couple sips and I got stuff to do. I'm busy. And then they want to be up all night feeding because there was too much going on during the day that they were paying attention to. Like babies are just, they're fascinating.
They are. Yeah.
The way they, they're what happens. So if you try to look at it as a perspective, from a perspective of all the growth that's going on and everything that is happening for them, it's so amazing, really, that it's not more difficult.
Right. Yeah. And another thing that happens too that worries people is they get real good at eating. And so then they eat. It doesn't take them as long to eat.
Mm-hmm.
And then people worry like, oh my God, well, they were only there for 5 minutes. How could they possibly have gotten enough?
Yeah.
Well, because they can now. They couldn't at first. But now they can literally just like run over. There's motivation too, right? They're like, I got to get back to this really interesting thing over here. So I'm going to eat really fast and then I'm going to go back over there. And then people go, oh God.
They're weaning.
They're not nursing as long. So there must be something wrong.
One of the ones that I get a lot, like at that age, like after 4 or 5 months, when those babies become super efficient, they are distracted. They are not going to hang out there for a while. Like babies become efficient pretty early on, but they will stay and just comfort nurse.
Yeah, that's true.
Once they get older, they're like, all right, I'm done. I've got to go see what the dog's doing.
Right. And the comfort nursing is more at night.
Yes. And the comfort nursing is more at night. And then people will call me and be like, the baby is screaming when I try to latch them. Like, what's going on? What's happening? And at first I'm like, oh my gosh, why would the baby be screaming when they try? And then I go, oh, wait a minute. When does this happen? Oh, after like 3 or 4 minutes. Is it because the flow is too slow? And I'm like, no, they're done. And you're trying to keep latching them. Like you're fighting with them, really.
Yeah. Like, and you don't even realize, you don't realize that their belly is full.
Like they're good.
Like their belly's literally full. They just drank all of that milk out. You didn't even know.
Yeah. And then they're done and you're trying to switch them and trying to move them and trying to relatch them. And they're like, leave me be. Like they're really fighting you.
They're like, I got to go.
And at that age, you can let them control that. They know what they want at that age. They know when they're hungry. They know when they're full. They know when they want to eat. And if you're just kind of like, okay, they want to get off my lap now and go, let it happen. And now you've reached the point where it's easy. Let them come on when they want to get on and get off when they want to get off.
Yeah. And they will.
Yeah.
And then, here's the other thing about breastfeeding is that it evolves just as much as their development, because they will continue. If you continue to nurse through toddlerhood and small childhood, even, they're continuing to grow and they're continuing to go through all of these, more developmental stages and milestones. And you might have this 9-month-old baby that is like on the go. You think, like, okay, this is how breastfeeding is going to be. And then they hit a year or 18 months or something, and they just decide that they need to nurse all the time again.
Mm-hmm.
And they're there all the time, all day and all night, nursing like a newborn. And you're like, what's going on? Something must be wrong. Oh, they're not really eating very many solids. All they want is breast milk. Something's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing's wrong. This is just what they do. And then say they're 2, and then they're all busy bodies again. And then they're 3. Oh my God, why are they nursing all day again? Why is this happening? Because it evolves. Just as much as your baby evolves, the relationship with breastfeeding does too. It never stays the same.
Right. And like we were saying earlier, it's different with every child you have.
Yeah. Yeah. You have one 3-year-old just wants to nurse all the time. Another 3-year-old that's just like, doesn't want to, wants to nurse at night and doesn't want to nurse at all during the day.
Yeah. So different.
And the thing about weaning, because we always think, yeah, like they're weaning, they're whatever. Like you're not going to see that with a baby or even a small toddler. You'll see weaning around like 2 and above.
Yeah, it's not as likely.
Before that, it's just developmental is taking their attention away from it. And there are people who are like, I tried everything I could. They were a year. I tried everything I could, and they just weaned. And, people have that experience, but it's likely that they were going through something and they were, just not nursing for a little while.
Yeah. And there's so much. Like I said, there's so much that goes on with them that we have no idea about. There's these really cool apps right now that like tell you like what developmental stage your baby is in and tells you if they're going through something. And sometimes they'll just be like super miserable, really cranky at times. And you're like, oh my gosh, what the heck? Where's my sweet smiley baby? They're like miserable right now. And a lot of times it's totally developmental. Something is happening there. They're going through something and it is just changing their outlook. It's changing the whole trajectory of what they're doing right now. Just roll with it if you can.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's hard not to think I'm doing something wrong, but you're not.
Or there's something wrong with them.
Yeah. Yeah. Because we get that a lot at the doctor's office. We'll get that people be like, my baby, like a lot of times it's like, okay, my baby, like I put her down and her arms moved. What happened? Or I put her down and she cried. What's going on there? When I pick her up, it stops. She wants you to pick her up. Like pick her up. It just, we look at every little thing through the microscope and go, there's something wrong. There must be something wrong. And I feel so bad sometimes for those parents because it's like, oh my gosh, I wish you could just like enjoy your baby for what they are. But that's so hard because we live in this environment where we're so like, oh my gosh, what is wrong?
Well, we also have like pediatricians, that are often fueling this too. Like, well, they should be doing this, they should be doing that. You probably don't have enough fat in your milk. You probably don't have enough calories. They shouldn't be waking that much. You should give them this. You should give them that. And then there's like the time around solids. Well, you should stop feeding them. You should stop breastfeeding them and give them more solids. Cut back on breastfeeding so that they'll eat more solids. Or, you have all of this advice too that comes from trusted sources that leads you astray.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so not helpful. I mean, you hear both sides of it. Like they're not eating enough solids. I should cut back on breastfeeding. Or they're eating so much solids they don't want to breastfeed anymore. And like each person is equally worried.
Yeah.
And going off of probably some misinformed, pediatrician.
There's like, we worry about so much stuff. And sometimes I'll get my baby doesn't nap well. I'm concerned about their brain development. It's like,
oh yeah, I remember that because Jack was not a sleeper.
Some babies are not good sleepers. They're just not.
Exactly. Especially if you have a highly sensitive baby. They have personalities. They come out who they are too. And some babies are sleepy and some babies are very wakeful. And Jack was a highly sensitive, wakeful person who did not sleep very much and still doesn't sleep very much. And I would just be like, something's wrong with his brain.
Yeah.
I had no idea that all of that was very normal. That like he didn't want to be put down. That, that he was more comfortable with me nursing through the night. Like I thought all of this was so problematic when it was absolutely normal.
Totally normal. The greatest resource for this, and I'll have to link it in the show notes, is Tracy Castles. She's great for this stuff.
She's been on this show a few times.
And she has been on the show talking about sleep, but she also has a great resource for what she calls an orchid baby, for those babies that are fussier, that just don't seem to fit in that box, and I've definitely had some families where I'm like, you have an orchid baby. Like and they call them that because they do better in a very specific environment. They're not like weeds that can kind of grow wherever. Orchids are very, very particular about how they're cared for. And orchid babies is kind of what we call those babies that are just a little bit, they need things to be a specific way for their development to be maximized, for them. And that is just personalities. It's who they are. It's just who they are. not all babies come out the same. So she's a great resource for that. Cause then people go, oh my gosh, I never even knew this was a thing. And it's like, yeah, babies they're just babies. Like we just have to figure out what they need and help them to reach their potential. But for some babies, it's easier than it is for others.
Yeah. Yeah. And when the other resource that we haven't had on the show yet, it was the sleep consultant that I worked with, Rebecca Miki. And, we worked for a long time to get, a specific environment in the home that would, encourage the, production of melatonin and help him sleep better. And it worked. It freaking worked.
Mm-hmm.
And it's true. He needed some babies are just like, oh my God, I don't know what's going on. I'm just going to fall asleep right here in the middle of IKEA. And then other babies just cannot.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
So they're all different. So don't worry about your baby's development. I mean, I think at the end of every podcast, I'm like, don't worry. I sound like Mary Poppins, but it really, your baby's doing they're trying to tell you exactly what they need.
Well, and think about it. If what you're going through, is this related to, is it a feeding problem or is this developmental?
Yeah.
Is this something that they're just going through? And it's not a feeding problem at all. Probably.
I mean, that doesn't make it easier to get through.
No one said that.
Yeah.
No one's going to tell you anything
just
like
know that not all of it is related to feeding. In fact, very, very little of it is related to feeding. But that's it.
Yeah. Thanks for listening.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.